Welcome to the Achieve Mastery Mentoring Program here at Realistic Acrylic Portrait School, where I'm showing students how to work on their own custom painting and literally demonstrating by painting on top of a print of a canvas that they send to me and I upload and print off and then set it up here on my easel. This is my student Merle's painting of a young woman she calls Emily, and it's painted with this Sfumato acrylic glazing technique that's reminiscent of Titian or Vermeer. You can see the very thin glazes we have represented even in the reference photo. A lot of vibrance, a lot of luminosity, a lot of very smooth shading with very nuanced gradations within the skin tones. Very gentle transitions from darker to lighter value. And that's what we're trying to portray in this painting. And I encourage you, welcome you, invite you to watch over my shoulder here as I paint on this portrait. And I'm showing Merle the next steps. Now Merle, you've done an outstanding job in your painting. I've seen your image that you sent me of your latest, and it is amazing. So if you want to check out Merle's painting, you probably can see it in our Realistic Acrylic Portraits group on Facebook. Go ahead and join that group if you haven't already. It's a great place to grow in your portrait painting skills and be encouraged by other artists. But let's get into this demonstration here. I'm excited to show Merle and my students the next steps. So let me just ask a quick blessing and we'll dive in. Father, I ask a blessing on the session. I pray you'd help me to show Merle the next steps in this painting. Thank you for the skills you've given her. Guide her with every brush stroke. I pray for students watching this video that this would be beneficial for them. Show them how they can also incorporate the glazing technique into their portraits and add a lot of vibrancy and depth. Bless this session, Lord, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we're going to get started here in just a second. And I'd just like to show you the colors we're using here. We have raw umber dark, burnt sienna, raw sienna, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, naphthol red, alizarin crimson, naphthol red, organic orange, Indian yellow, and titanium white right there on the top. So we're going to dive in here just by developing a little more tonal value contrast. So I'm going to go to the background. I want to darken that a bit more. Let's use a slightly larger brush this time. I'm going to use my 3/4 flat. So take some raw umber dark and ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson. Add a little more raw umber dark and ultramarine blue. We're going to get this quite dark. This mixture here is going to be, let's see, probably 30 to 40% opaque. I'll start in the upper corner this time and work my way down. And we're going to cut up inside the headscarf to kind of blend this tonal value in. We always want to keep a wet edge, so I brush one way, then I brush the other way to smooth it out. This paint dries very quickly here because I have my wood heat in the studio. I've said that many times, but I'll probably say it again. It's just way different than how it usually dries. Okay, I'm going to keep this wet edge here. If it's not as smooth as you'd like, you'll have other opportunities to smooth it out. Cut this up in here. Just lay that out quickly and then smooth it out. Yeah, that dries so fast. So I have a few bands there where it's not as smooth as I'd like, but that's okay. I know I'll be able to smooth it out later. All right, let's get the darker tonal values in the lower portions. Fill that in. Blend it down here a bit. And then we'll develop a little more shading on that left side of her face. Like that. And we want to also develop a little of the shading here, get these small pocket values on the scarf. Turn my brush at an angle so I can get a chiseled edge and really get these details in here. Okay. Go. Just want to cut up along the edge of her neck a little bit more. And along the chin and jawline. Okay. Now with that, switch to a slightly smaller brush, and we're going to put some deeper blues within this part of the scarf and then down there, because that has to get done next. So let's take some ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to start that right here to the left of the other glaze. Add a little bit of phthalo. That got a little stronger than I wanted. Take a little more ultramarine blue. I'm going to add just a bit of alizarin crimson because I had too much phthalo blue, and that will kind of desaturate it a bit. Give it a little bit more richness. I'm going to mix that slightly into the other glaze, because down here on the bottom, this color needs to be less saturated, so I've got to mix it into that other glaze that I've got with the raw umber dark to desaturate it a bit. A little more ultramarine blue, a little more raw umber dark, and then just a bit more alizarin crimson. That takes away the kind of yellowish quality of the pigment. It kind of compensates for that and gets it more to the blue-purple spectrum of color. Okay, so here I have it on a white card. That's the color we've got going on. I think this is probably dry already, amazingly. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that on the bottom here. Just kind of brush it the other direction. Since I'm overlapping into the other area, I've got to really make sure that I cover all of the dark values, not just this lighter area, but everything has to get covered. Otherwise, it's going to have some strange lap marks. So just kind of darken this whole thing here. I'll try to get a nice precise edge on the edge of her face, but if I can't do it now, I can always do it later with my detail brush. That's probably the best opportunity to do that. I should put my focus on just getting a nice smooth application of paint here. All right, I'm going to bring this into the background and make sure that you've got, this layer completely dry before adding another one. I can do that again because this wood stove I've got pumping out this hot dry air in my studio. It dries so fast, but for you it might not work for you to do another layer that quickly. So just double check and make sure it's completely dry, or you're going to have blotchiness as the paint kind of pulls up the previous layer. All right, so we added that, and that gets some good tonal value contrast. Now we want to darken this part of the scarf, but I need to rinse off my brush and get the mixture to be a little more saturated. We want a little more chromatic intensity in that particular blue we're putting in there. So let's do that. We'll just Yeah, I like this color here. So here's the more saturated color. You can see the difference between, you know, the first was that raw umber dark. Well, not just raw umber dark, but it kind of made a black color when we mixed all those colors together, raw umber dark, ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson. And then we have the next version, which is a mix of that plus some ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and alizarin crimson. And then we have this mixture, which is ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, and alizarin crimson by itself. So it's more saturated. So I'm going to add that up in here. Can overlap into the background just a bit. We don't want to have any ghosting, you know, where if you don't bring your paint up to the very edge, you'll have kind of a white line where there's not any paint. So don't be afraid to go over the lines. It's better to overlap than to underlap. All right, so we've got this here, and I'm going to again apply this. Let's go into the bottom section of that area, leaving these areas open for the more greenish color. I'm just basically trying to, the goal is to get this area a little bit darker with the tonal values and smooth out some of the brushwork. Still a lot more contrast to achieve at this point. Put a little bit of it on the bottom again. There we are. And now that leaves her face looking much more lighter by contrast. Now let's pivot, and before I do anything else, let's just get this palette sprayed with a little mist of water. And that keeps that paint from drying out, because again, with the wood heat in this studio, boy, it's just so dry in here. But I could run a humidifier, but I was having some problems with humidity on the other side of my studio. I have two rooms here, one where I paint in, and the other one is my display area, and it's under construction right now. And I was having some humidity problems not long ago, because the weather has just gotten cold and dry recently. Prior to that, it was kind of cold and damp, and I wanted to keep the humidity level down in that other section. So I don't want to run a humidifier right now, even though it might be a little more conducive to painting. But I don't know. I get used to doing the glazes pretty fast. So anyway, let's darken this left side here. Let's darken this left side of her face. So we're going to take raw umber dark with this flat brush. This is a 1/2 inch flat raw umber dark and a little bit of alizarin crimson. I just try to grab a bit of it. It's such a strong color. Then I bring it into the mixture. See, and I can kind of control it here as I push some of it off to the side and then bring some of it in. Now, if you're new to this YouTube channel, or first time you've seen my video teaching, you're probably curious about my aluminum foil palette. If you're curious about that, I have a video on it. You can check it here in the channel just by doing a search, aluminum foil palette. In fact, you probably, if you put it in Google, my video will pop up right at the top, because I don't think many people use aluminum foil for their palettes other than the people who follow me. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm the absolute first person that came up with the idea, but I was just trying to find different ways of painting and palette systems, and nothing else worked. And I just went to the kitchen cabinet. Made my wife a little bit mad for a moment, I think, because I grabbed some aluminum foil out of there, and I don't think she appreciated me using her aluminum foil. So that's why I have my own now. But anyway, if you're curious about it, you can check that. It's a great way to recycle, and works really well for me. Okay, so I'm applying this glaze here on the left hand side of her face, just trying to darken the whole thing. So I'm using this larger brush, using perpendicular brush strokes. Then I kind of smooth it out by lifting up very lightly and just feathering the surface. And then I'm gonna also feather it into the side, less brush pressure, lift up with your brush strokes, and it's kind of lifting off, you know, for an airplane taking off on a runway. Just lift it up at the edge, and that's going to help smooth things out. You can bring a little bit into this area too, but we have to keep in mind the color gets warmer there. Oh, and let's show you this color on the white card. I'll squeeze that a little bit firmer and I can get that glaze to come right off the brush. It's all about the brush pressure. More brush pressure, more paint comes off the brush. Less brush pressure, it just hardly anything comes off, especially when you have the texture of a canvas. It really helps you to control how much comes off your brush. See, I can just feather this by lightly grazing the surface and doing little crisscross brush strokes. See how it's just feathering it on there? But if I were to squeeze hard, like I could squeeze right here, you can see how much glaze comes off. See that? I'm just showing you on the edge, but I don't want that all on the edge there. Just to give you an idea though. Yeah, so let's add a little bit to the bottom here. You kind of get a feeling for when you're running out of paint though, and then you have to reload your brush. Almost getting to that point. But I'm going to just kind of push this a little bit further. This is that Sfumato technique adapted for acrylics. You know, obviously it works way easier with oil, but I learned this glazing technique from Norbert Cox, an instructor at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, way back in 1993, I believe it was, and I fell in love with acrylics after that. Prior to that, I used colored pencil, and I could not get acrylics to work for me, could not get them to blend. So frustrating. But after learning the glazing technique, boy, it sure just opened up a whole new world of creating portraits in full color. And I love this glazing technique, and I've taught it to hundreds of students all over the world, and hope I can teach you as well, and that it's beneficial for you. All right, we're going to add a little glaze right down here below the cheek, well, the lip area, and just get a little more differentiation between that chin and the cheek area. Or sorry, the chin and the kind of area below that lip. There's a little separation there. We want to show the suppleness of that flesh, and this shadow is what does that. So we'll put that in. I guess I just have to be patient and hit it with another glaze because, yeah, I can't get it with two glazes to the level of darkness that I want. That's all right. But let's get a little more, just another level of shading around the eyes and develop, you know, that sense of the structure of the skull underneath. Imagine if, you know, the skin were not on here and it was just a skull, we'd see those indentations, right? And we need to get that kind of shading on the face to show that there is actually a skull underneath, and there's an indentation of her eyes being sunken in, and that's what achieves that, are these glazes, and putting the dark tonal values in the right place. So we pop that in. Now step back, look at it, and say, okay, what's next? I think it's time to get a glaze or two in on the hair. So for that, oh, let's see, what kind of brush do I want? Grab a slightly smaller brush. This would be like a 3/8 flat. And I think that'll be perfect for the hair. So I'm just going to take this area of glaze down here, this matte medium. Glazing technique consists of using matte medium, which is basically acrylic polymer resin binder without pigment. Dries to a flat finish. It's basically milky white when it's wet, but it dries crystal clear. You mix that into your paint, or your paint into that rather, at a ratio of usually at least 1 part paint to 3, or 1 part paint to like 2 parts matte medium. So a ratio of like, you know, 33 to 66%. And you can develop beautiful glazes. And again, that's just making your paint translucent, more vibrant, allowing you to blend. It's just a wonderful way to paint. Now, let's go ahead and take this little bit of matte medium and we're going to add some naphtha red, organic orange off to the side, blend it into this matte medium, swirl it around, a little bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of raw sienna, and boy, my paint is drying so fast. I got to spray this again. All right. All right, so I think this will be good right here. Get a nice, robust, vibrant color. Now let's show it to you on the white card. There it is. We're going to add that to the hair, intensify it, give it more vibrant. There it goes. That's good. That's good. I love it. Now let's go ahead and put some of that in on the lips as well. Got a little more vibrant color for the lips. I'm going to pull from this more vibrant part of my mixture. So it's got less burnt sienna, more organic orange, and naphtha red. Put that in on the lips, just kind of make them a little more vibrant right there. And just add a little bit around the eyes because she's got this kind of reddish eyes, and I want to make sure we've got, you know, that color implied there. I don't want to go too crazy, but mostly by the tear duct and just that little edge, left edge of the eye, so you can see that difference. All right, let's make sure that that glaze goes all the way up to the edge by the scarf. All right, that's good. Excellent. And now, let's see, I'm going to add just a little bit of this glaze, this reddish tint, just to the left part of the cheek. So right there, I'm going to zoom in so you can see that. So right there, I want to make sure I don't have too much of my brush. I just wipe my brush on a rag that I have next to me here. It's always good to have a rag, like a towel or something you can wipe your brush onto if you have too much glaze on your brush. And then we just go ahead and add that color right there. So that kind of gets these colors all harmonized. You don't want to have only one instance of color on your painting. You want to make sure it's spread out in various spots of your painting to promote color harmony and unity within your portrait. And so you'll often find that in the reference photo as well if you look for it. That's why I add this warm color here, 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 and there. And then we also want to finish this up by putting in the yellowish glazes back into the scarf. So we're going to take some raw sienna, a little bit of phthalo blue, and mix that together. Raw sienna, phthalo blue. Maybe just a tiny bit of Indian yellow. Okay, that's good. Now, take that, and we're going to add that to the top here. Just kind of get that warmer color in. Here's that color on the white card if you want to see it. We'll pop it in right here. Pop it in there. Probably could have made it a little more robust, a little bit more opaque. And pull in just a little more pigment into that quickly. Okay, I'll show you that. Here's the same glaze, just a little more opaque. It's got a little more pigment in it. And we're going to also add that down below at the bottom as well. All right. And we'll just add a tiny bit to her face because I detect it in my reference photo as I look. Usually I don't put greens in, you know, a reference photo, but as you look at, or sorry, I don't put greens in my portrait, but as you look at the reference photo, you can see it a little bit, very subtly on the side of the jawline. So I'm just going to incorporate that in. And a little bit around the eyes. These cooler tones right here, a little bit up here on the forehead as well. I'm detecting some of that differentiation in color there, a little bit right in here. And when you get those varieties of hues in your skin tones, boy, that can go a long way in really making your portrait look realistic. Because in a lot of portraits by beginning portrait artists, I often see skin tones that are kind of the same for the whole face. You know, they might look up a skin tone recipe online, whatever it is, like 1 part burnt sienna to 2 parts titanium white, or whatever their color choices are. And you can do that. I mean, it's kind of a basis for starting. You can start, I guess, with a skin tone recipe, so to speak, but you can't use it over the whole face. There's so many varieties of hues, cooler tones with shadows, areas around the eyes that are bluer because the blood vessels, you know, add color. And then there's areas around the nose and cheeks that have more of a reddish hue based on the blood vessels, pigmentation, highlights, so many different factors, reflected light from clothing. So you really want to get those varieties of hues and tints in your skin tones, and that really can make a big difference. And that's why we're having some of these cooler tones in here to really bring the portrait alive. All right, well, I'm going to stop off here. We've got a ways to go with this, but I want to show you these next steps on the portrait. Merle, thank you so much for your hard work. I'm looking forward to seeing your progress on the painting. Please get in touch with me, you know, and let me know what you think of the video. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing your progress, of course. And thank you so much, everybody else who's watched this video here. I hope that these tips, this technique, will be beneficial to you in your portrait painting. You can find more tips, tutorials, free classes, and videos at Realistic Acrylic Portrait School. That's realisticacrylic.com. Check that out. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.